Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're reviewing AEW Full Gear 2022. If you've seen a couple days ago, I did a predictions, so I am going to be grading myself on this as we go through the review, telling you how many I have right, how many I have wrong. If you haven't seen any of my videos before, I do rate everything on a 1 to 5 scale. 1 is the worst, 5 is the best. Let's jump right in. We're going to start off with the pre-show. From the buy-in, the first match of the show, this was unannounced, so I didn't make a prediction on this at the time I recorded my prediction show. We have the Best Friends, consisting of Orange Cassidy, Trent Beretta, Chuck Taylor, Rocky Romero, and Danhausen, going up against the Factory, consisting of Aaron Solo, QT Marshall, Lee Johnson, Nick Comoroto, and Cole Carter. I did enjoy a few things about this. I like the more evil Danhausen, the little bit of a gimmick shift there. I like that he brought the teeth out, and that's always a fun thing. But I didn't feel like this felt like it belonged on a pay-per-view. This felt more like it should have been on Rampage, or maybe even on Dynamite. It didn't feel like it served its purpose to hype the crowd up for the pay-per-view. It didn't feel like it was important. The Factory are pretty much treated like they're jokes at this point. There are some great wrestlers there. I like Lee Johnson a lot. I like Comoroto a lot. Solo, I like him. I even like Cole Carter. I mean, there's not anyone in the Factory I don't think is a good wrestler. I just think that they haven't been booked in a way where the fans give a crap about them, and that includes me. It made me feel like this was an unimportant match. The Best Friends team does pick up the win here. I'm giving this one a 3. It was good, but again, it would have felt more in place on a Rampage than it did on this pay-per-view. Now going from that, a semi-final match in the World Title Eliminator Tournament. We have Brian Cage versus Ricky Starks. When I did make the prediction, I didn't know if it would be Starks or Lance Archer, and I still picked Starks to win, so I did get that correct. Starks does win this match. I thought this was a really fun match. I really like these two together. Hopefully this is the beginning of a much bigger push for Ricky Starks. I think he deserves to be up in that upper tier, high mid-card, main event level. I hope we see a lot more of Brian Cage too. Maybe we'll get a Ring of Honor show very soon, because he is currently with Prince Nana on the Ring of Honor talent side of the board. And I'd like to see a lot more of Cage. I think he's a great wrestler too that's kind of been pushed to the background a lot. Again, like I said, Ricky Starks did pick up the win, so I got 1 correct so far and 0 wrong. I'm giving that match a 4. I thought it was pretty good. Next up, the final match of the buy-in, we have Eddie Kingston versus June Akiyama. This wasn't announced at the time of my predictions, and I'm kind of happy that it wasn't, because if it would have been, I would have predicted it wrong. I would have 100% said that Eddie Kingston would lose to June Akiyama for a number of reasons. One being that Eddie Kingston loves June Akiyama, so he would have wanted to do the honors for him. Eddie Kingston does pick up the win, if you can't tell. I did think this was a fantastic match. This was by far my favorite match of the pre-show. This was awesome how this was an awesome way to sell it if you were on the fence on going into buying the pay-per-view. This would have pushed it over the limit, especially Eddie's promo after the match, because Eddie Kingston's one of the best talkers in wrestling. I'm giving this a 5. I thought it was fantastic. Going right from that into the main card, we have Luchasaurus versus Jungle Boy in a cage match, which I figured they would start with. I will say I don't like the AEW cage. I don't like that it's just a little bit off of the ring. I feel like there's going to be, at some point, somebody's going to get badly injured from falling in that gap or getting stuck in that gap doing a move. And with a lot of the crazy moves that are done in AEW, that's going to happen sooner than later, in my opinion. And it could probably be avoided just by having the traditional cage on the ring, or having it out further like a Hell in the Cell kind of situation. I thought this was a really fun match. Luchasaurus versus Jungle Boy Jack Perry. I did enjoy this. I hope this is the end of the feud, because it definitely feels like it should be. Jungle Boy picks up the win on this one. I did predict this one correctly, so I got 2 correct, 0 wrong. And I'm going to give this match a 5. I really enjoyed it, especially that elbow drop to end the match. I thought that was fantastic. Next up, we have for the Trios Championship, Death Triangle versus the Elite. I was a little surprised that this match was this early in the card. I would have figured this to be the semi-main event, just to make that Elite return even more impactful. but I guess they didn't want to make you wait. They wanted to give you right up front. They kind of did the same thing with the CM Punk return, and yes, I know talking about CM Punk and the Elite, they're in two different camps right now. I definitely understand, but they kind of like the first dance where Punk came out right off the bat, get it out of the way. Maybe that's what they were feeling here. I do love that they got to carry on My Wayward Son. I have mentioned in the past, and I'll mention it here again, because it feels like they really need to get some music. If they're going to license music, can we get something that was made in the last 20 years? I mean, not that this is a bad song. It's a great song, and I had a lot of fun playing it on Guitar Hero a decade ago. And it's fantastic. It's one of the great songs of its era. But come on, guys, can we get something more new? Something to bring in the younger crowd? Off my soapbox. This was a track meet. This was anything you could say. It was a fast-paced, blink and you miss 7 moves kind of match, which was absolutely fantastic. These guys are 6 of the best in the world in that kind of a setting. They were absolutely fantastic. I was a little bit surprised with the ending. I kind of felt like they may have broke up Death Triangle here, but Rey Fenix does take the hammer, does use the hammer, thus helping Death Triangle pick up the win. I was wrong about this on my prediction, so I'm sitting at 2 correct, 1 wrong. But the match was fantastic, so I'm giving that match a 5. Next up, we have for the TBS Championship, Nyla Rose going up against Jade Cargill. And I gotta tell you, as a kid of the 80s, Jade Cargill coming out as Chitara was absolutely fantastic. She knocks it out of the park with these cosplays. Her She-Hulk was fantastic. Her Jade from Mortal Kombat was fantastic. And there's some others that I'm forgetting. It's pretty late right now while I'm doing this. I watched a little bit of the media scrum before shooting this. It's basically about an hour after the pay-per-view ended. As you can see, I'm pretty tired, which I'm probably going to stumble a little bit. I do apologize for that, but I want to get this out as quickly as possible while everything's fresh. This match was a little bit, much like me, it stumbled at times, and it felt a little bit sloppy at times, especially the most glaring part was the Nyla Rose knee off of the turnbuckle on Jade being draped over the ropes. That was the most clunky part in my opinion. There were other clunky parts. It wasn't a bad match. I did enjoy it. Jade Cargill does pick up the win, which I got correctly, so I got 3 right, 1 wrong. I'm giving the match a 3. I thought it was good, but I expected better from both of these women. Now going from that, we go into our Ring of Honor Fatal 4-Way for the World Championship. Chris Jericho defending against Claudio Castagnoli, against Sammy Guevara, against Bryan Danielson. Again, I'm sorry. I'm so used to calling him Daniel Bryan that it's just almost natural. His real name doesn't even feel right. This kind of went the way I expected. I did think there was a chance we seen a breakup of the JAS here. It was teased during the match, but I thought that we might get a full breakup, which we didn't. A little bit surprised that they didn't, because we'll talk about that here in a little bit later when we do recap the show in general. Jericho did pick up the win on this one. I did pick this one correctly, so I'm sitting at 4 correct and 1 wrong. I'm giving this match a 5. I thought it was fantastic. The highlight of the match, in my opinion, was Sammy Guevara. When Sammy Guevara steps up and has this more serious, less goofing around type of match, I think he absolutely shines and he shows where his untapped potential is. I think Sammy's a guy that can be a world champion. You just gotta have him have more of this and get away from some of the goofiness, some of the craziness that he does. But I think he was fantastic here. He was the MVP of the match, in my opinion. And we're talking about 3 guys that are already locks to be Hall of Famers. Again, I'm giving this match a 5. I got it correct. I did pick Jericho, so I got 4 correct, 1 wrong. Next up, I probably am going to overrate this, and I'll explain why in a moment here. We have Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, going up against Saraya, the returning Saraya for the first time in 5 years. I had a lot of emotional investment in this match because Saraya is my favorite women's wrestler of all time. Her and AJ Lee are my top 2. They're the wrestlers on the women's side of it that I'm most drawn to. I mean, I love plenty of women's wrestlers. Everybody from Wendy Richter to Medusa to Lita to Ivory to Trish Stratus. There have been some great ones over the years. The Beautiful People in TNA I thought were some of the best Some of the best wrestling of that era was done by the beautiful people, but Saraya and AJ Lee, to me, were the top two, in my opinion. Something about the style they employed, their gimmicks, the fact, and I hate to say this because it feels kind of crappy, they felt more real and they felt like they were actual wrestlers at a time where a lot of the women were models that got hired to be wrestlers, and not saying that some of them didn't turn out to be fantastic wrestlers, Trish Stratus being one of them. The Bellas, I think, did a lot better than most people give them credit for. They stood out in those eras, and for that reason, my enjoyment of Saraya and expecting her to come back here, I'm probably going to overrate this, because the match, I can admit it wasn't as great as some of the matches she's had with other people, and same with Britt Baker. This wasn't Britt Baker's best match either. It was a good match. I did enjoy it. I really was emotionally invested, and ultimately that's what we want in wrestling. We want to be invested in our favorite wrestlers. We want to boo the wrestlers we hate. We want to cheer the wrestlers we love. We want to get these feel-good stories of a wrestler that thought they were never going to do it again coming back. This was fantastic. Again, Saraya picks up the win. I did pick this correctly, so I'm sitting at 5 correct, 1 incorrect. I'm going to give this match a 4. Like I said, I'm probably overrating it here a little bit, but the emotional part of it gets the extra little bit from me. Now going from that, we have a 3-way dance or 3-way match for the TNT Championship. Wardlow's defending against Samoa Joe and Powerhouse Hobbs. This was the most surprising outcome to me, even with the Elite losing, which I didn't expect at all. If you would have asked me to power rank these 3 wrestlers on whose chances to win, I would have said Wardlow, Hobbs, Samoa Joe. Not that Joe is bad, just the way that the other guys have been booked, and I kind of feel like they're almost missing an opportunity with Hobbs. They need to get him a belt soon, or get him in a main event push and a main event run very soon, because if they don't strike soon, it's going to get to where they go past the point. It almost felt like they did that with Hangman Page. It kind of felt like they waited too long, and when they finally gave him his championship, it was a little bit past the time he needed to have it. And I feel like they're doing the same thing with Hobbs here. I feel like that's happening with him. I was shocked again, like I said. The last person I thought would win did win. Samoa Joe picks up the win after choking out Hobbs, with Wardlow doing the lion's share of the work to get Hobbs to that point. I thought this was a fantastic outcome. It was a surprise. Again, now I'm sitting at 5 correct and 2 wrong, because I did pick this incorrectly. I picked Wardlow on my predictions. I'm giving this match a 4. I thought it was really good. Going from that, we get our tag team match here. Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal going up against Sting and Darby Allin. And in hindsight, when I did my predictions, I don't know what I was thinking here. Sting and Darby have been made to look like gods on pay-per-view, undefeatable monsters. I guess I overthought it and thought maybe they would use this as a way to elevate Jay Lethal into the main event status. As you could tell, Sting and Darby Allin do pick up the win here. I did enjoy this match. This was your brawl of the night. AEW does find a great way to incorporate different styles. They get the fast-paced quasi-lucha style with like the Young Bucks and the Death Triangle. You get this brawl here. You get somewhat of a brawl in the main event, some more of a classic professional wrestling matches with the Acclaimed and Swerve and Keith Lee. We'll talk about this at the end more. And Storm and Hayter having more of a classic wrestling style match. But you got these brawls here in the middle of it, kind of break up the monotony, kind of give you a little bit of variety, keep you going to different places. I really enjoyed this match. Darby and Sting win. I got this one incorrect, so right now I got 5 right and 3 wrong. Going on a little bit of a dry spell. I'm giving this one a 4 again. I thought it was pretty good. Next up, for the Interim Women's Championship, we have Toni Storm defending against Jamie Hayter. And before we talk about this match, I know he's probably never going to see it, but on the off chance someone shows this to Tony Khan or he stumbles upon this, can we please do away with the interim titles? If a wrestler is injured and they're the champion and they're going to be out more than a month, more than 2 months, more than you could write into a story, strip them of the title. Let somebody else be the actual champion. Toni Storm had a fantastic run as a women's champion, and it's forever going to be marked in the record book as an interim championship. And that's not right to Toni Storm. She deserves better than that. Jamie Hayter, who won, spoiler, she does win this match, deserves to be more than the interim champion. She deserves to be the actual women's champion. You need to take away that interim title. I understand if a wrestler is going to be out 2 months and you want to do an interim and then after 2 months have it come back. That would be okay, but if they're going to be out 3, 4, 5, 6 months, just strip them of the title. All the fans will understand. We won't be mad. The match itself, I thought it was fantastic. I loved the setup. I loved the fact that Britt Baker was there for her, that Britt didn't turn on her like I thought she might, and I felt like they might do that. It really feels like Britt is her friend, not that she was using her now, where at times it felt more like Britt was using her during their friendship. So I thought this was fantastic. Jamie Hayter, absolutely the antithesis of Hobbs. They struck when the iron was hot here. The crowd was so excited for this. They were booing when they thought Toni Storm was going to win, and they were blowing up and going crazy anytime that Jamie Hayter looked like she could pick up the win, and they did go crazy when she did pick up the win. Hayter, to me, is the most over woman on the roster. She definitely deserves to be the women's champion. She's absolutely fantastic. I did pick this correct, so I'm sitting at 6 correct and 3 wrong. I'm giving this match a 5. This is my favorite match of the night. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Next up, we get the Acclaim defending their tag team championship against Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland. Swerve in our glory. This kind of went the way that everybody pretty much expected it to. Swerve and Keith Lee had some issues. Swerve wants Keith Lee to use the pliers. Keith Lee declines, walks away from him, thus letting the Acclaim take up and win. The Acclaim pick up the win here. I picked this one correctly, so I'm sitting at 7 correct, 3 wrong. I hope Anthony Bowens' shoulder injury isn't as bad. I hope it's not that bad at all, because it would really suck to have them derailed when they're right here, when they're at the height of their popularity. That would really suck, in my opinion. They're probably, along with Jamie Hayter and the person we're going to talk about next, some of the best homegrown talents, Jungle Boy, homegrown talent showing off on this card. There was a feeling of a lot of shifting happening, and I'll talk about that at the end here. Again, the Acclaim pick up the win. I'm giving this match a 5. I'm sitting at 7 correct, 3 wrong. Now we go to the main event of the evening. Jon Moxley versus Maxwell Jacob Friedman for the AEW, almost called it the Interim, the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. I got this one correct. Everybody got this correct. Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder could have seen this. This was pretty obvious. As a matter of fact, I even brought up the scenario on my predictions with Regal turning on Moxley. I kind of felt like there was going to be a reset on a lot of things at Blackpool Combat Club. I thought there might be a reset on the Jericho Appreciation Society, maybe a break between Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter. There are a lot of things that changed. This was a fantastic match. I loved everything about this. MJF's build has been absolutely perfect. They're doing this right at the perfect time. It definitely feels like he's something fresh, something that gives excitement to the product. It brings up a newfound interest in the company and a newfound interest in their show. I thought this was a fantastic match. I did pick this correctly, and I think everybody in the world could have picked this one correctly. So at the end, out of the 11 matches I picked, I got 8 correct and 3 wrong. I'll take that. I think that's a pretty solid predictions. I'm giving this match a 5. I thought it was fantastic. Overall, I'm going to give this show a 5. I thought there was a lot to like here. It didn't drag along like a lot of their pay-per-views do. It felt like this was brisk. It felt like it kept going, and it's just as long as any of the others were. It felt like the way they placed the matches, the stories that were being told kept your interest, kept you going, kept you excited throughout the show. I am tired now, so you probably heard me stumble a lot during this. I really thought this was a really good pay-per-view, one of their best in my opinion. It does set the stage going forward. We get new champions with MJF, Samoa Joe, Jamie Hayter. We get the Best of 7 series with the Death Triangle and the Elite, which I think is going to be fantastic. There's a lot of things going forward. Jungle Boy gets to move away from his feud with Luchasaurus and Christian Cage, maybe move on to a TNT type run or get into that picture. A lot of really great stuff here. A lot to go forward. We're definitely going to see a Swerve and Keith Lee feud. I think that's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing to see where they go with MJF and William Regal when Regal helped him with the brass knuckles. Again, overall, I'm giving the show a 5. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And if you made it all the way to the end here, let's smash that like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't. If you made it to the end, Let me know in the comments what your favorite match of the card was. If you haven't watched it yet, what are you most excited to see? Or if you're not planning on watching it, what outcome is your favorite outcome, I guess? With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been my review of AEW Full Gear 2022.